Think about this. The Ravens have won 23-7 at Jacksonville, then 33-19 at San Francisco. Then yesterday, they, of course, demolished the Dolphins 56-19. So, Richard, scale of 1 to 10, how much do you believe the Ravens will win the Super Bowl?
I think it's 50-50 between them and San Francisco. I think they got a great team, and they're going to I would think they walk through the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl, and they're in Las Vegas. I would think the same for the San Francisco 49ers. I think it'll be a good game in Vegas. So I'd say 50-50 both ways.
So you'll say scale 1 to 10, you'd say you'd give it a 5, and you'd give San Francisco a 5. Yeah. Okay, Michael?
Yeah, same, both ways.
Well, man, I mean, with seeing what they just did to San Francisco, you know, and the way they just handled Miami. They're clearly the best team in the NFC, best team in the AFC. They're the best team in the National Football League right now. I came in here thinking a 10 on their opportunity of winning a Super Bowl, but I'll drop that to a 9.5, and I'll throw out what I threw out before. Because they've led every game in the last 2 minutes of the game. You got to pass every class before you win a Super Bowl in the NFL.
Yep.
They will be in a game and down 7, 8, 10 points, and I need to see Lamar come back and do that. I'll give him a 9.5 just because I haven't seen it.
Okay. I'm going to go to a 9 just because I'm not seeing the 85 Bears here. I'm not seeing just absolute lock where I just say nobody's going to touch them. But I think Richard brought this up earlier, and I'm going to echo, but the Ravens are the first team since the 1970 merger to lead the league in points allowed and in sacks and in takeaways. Well, it's just, I don't know. That maybe it's not 85 Bears-ish because it's not a brand new scheme that Buddy Ryan was teaching and coaching that nobody could figure out how to deal with, but man, they're good. They got beat up yesterday. They're down Kyle Hamilton. I don't know about, he's got a sprained knee, and the Stevens kid wasn't able to go yesterday. And then, obviously, Marlon Humphrey was lost. It looked like he tweaked his calf, and you never know. Can that plague them throughout the playoffs? They're a beat-up team. It looked like Patrick Queen has a shoulder that he keeps aggravating. But, again, with Lamar playing at this level and the weapons that they have in place of, obviously, a Mark Andrews and the 2 running backs they lost, I don't know. They look pretty invincible to me, especially with 2 home games to get to the Super Bowl. I know if we go back a few years, Lamar had the 1 seed and Tennessee went in there and just kicked their tails. That's not going to happen this time.
Right. Right, man, because you said it, Skip. You mentioned it. You said it's not 85 Bears, but I think it is. I think it is in this sense, Skip. I've always, what do I say here? Defense don't win championships, but turnover defense, that can win you championships. And, you know, you get to the quarterback, and they're the lead, like Sherm just talked to you about. They lead the league in getting to the quarterback and taking that ball away. You can win Super Bowls with that kind of defense, and that's why I say that is. They got to the quarterback, and they took the ball away as best as anybody, those 85 Bears or those 2,000 Ravens.
They did. So, Richard, you're not putting that much stock in 33-19 at San Francisco then?
No, I put a lot of stock into it, but I know how it goes in these playoffs, and I know how it goes in these Super Bowls. I've seen teams win games in the regular season and lose, get to those teams in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a tough game. It's a different atmosphere in those playoffs. So you got to wait and see. You know, like you said, there's been situations where teams have a lot of success in these regular seasons, and in the playoffs, things you stumble or a mistake here, a mistake there, and it's a very unforgiving game in those playoffs. There is no redos. There is no second chance. There is no, hey, let's get them next time. It's get them next year. And so I think it's going to be great. I look forward to these playoffs. I hope we get some of these storybook conversations, these really where the script of the NFL is in play. I want to see Stafford go to Detroit. I want to see Flacco come back to Baltimore with the Browns. That'd be a fun. These are the storylines that I want to see, and that would make these playoffs a very memorable.
I just want to see Dallas versus the Ravens in the Super Bowl. How about that, Michael?
Well, you got to see that on Madden or something.
After they go through San Francisco, they got to you can't just go. You got to get that San Francisco thing out of the way. The road thing, the San Francisco thing, all of that has to get out of the way this year. This cannot go any farther than 2024. Right here, right now. That's what the Cowboys have to be saying.
So, Michael, you believe the curse has been broken?
Oh, yeah. The curse has been broken. Thanks to Jimmy, thanks to Jerry. Nothing that the guys did on the field, but they will benefit from what happened on the field.
I agree. So back to the Ravens. In conclusion, Richard, I just love the way Lamar is playing, and I love the way he's leading that football team, because every interview I see, he says all the right things because they're from his heart. He knows that his eye is on that prize in Las Vegas, and that they're not going to get ahead of themselves, but they're going to take this one step at a time the right way, the way they didn't a few years back when they had the 1 seed.
Yeah, he is handling those interviews, I think, perfect, Skip. I'm with you on that. I mean, he's short about his answers and directed. It looks like he's been talking and working with people on how to handle those things. And is always focused forward. We're not even talking about where we're to the ultimate goal. We're just thinking about right now. He's done a good job at that. Okay, it is time for our predictions for today. Who wins today's college football playoff semifinals next on Undisputed? No mercy, no mercy. Okay, Richard Sherman, you have been adamant that Lamar Jackson simply doesn't have the stats that have always been required to win an MVP. He did obviously have a big game yesterday as the Ravens at home blew out the Dolphins, of course, 56-19. Lamar went 18 of 21, 321 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. QBR scale is 0 to 100 of 96. So, Richard, did that performance change your mind?
Skip, no, it did not, because the fact of the matter remains the same for me. That didn't move the needle. It was a fantastic performance by Lamar Jackson at a time his team needed it. It was a statement game late in the season in December. You got to give him all the credit in the world. But the 5 touchdowns in this game against the Miami Dolphins, as crazy as it sounds, Skip, are almost as many as he had in the months of both September and November combined. In those months combined, he had 6 touchdowns passing. And so when you look at the full picture, I just don't see it. And again, people argue with me and they're like, man, you're just hating. I don't see how I'm hating. I'm just laying out the facts of the matter. If he
you're
had
not hating.
30
I'll
touchdowns.
be the first to say you're not hating. Go ahead.
No.
Yeah, I think he's a fantastic. I thought that was an unbelievable game. I thought he played really well against San Francisco. I think he's having a really good season. It's just when he had his MVP season, and it was unanimous, so you got to put an asterisk next to that because it was so outstanding that he was the first unanimous MVP in the history of the league. But he had 36 touchdown passes. Yep. And then you look at him having 24 this year. He had 1,200 rushing yards. You look at it, he has about 843 or so this year. And so I don't see it as the same in that respect. And people are like, well, he should get MVP because of what? If the numbers aren't there, then there's not much to say. People were like, they were comparing it to the Peyton Manning season of 2008. I mean, that season he had 6 fourth-quarter comebacks. He led the league in QBR. There were things that happened late in that year that kind of pushed him over the top, but the stats weren't necessarily there. And again, that was 15 years ago. If I look at the last 20 MVPs of the National Football League, 3 of them being running backs, you had all-day Adrian Peterson, who had 2,000 yards. You had LaDainian with 31 total touchdowns. You had Sean Alexander with 28 total touchdowns. But outside of that, it's been quarterbacks. And those quarterbacks, there's only been 3, and 2 of them were co-MVPs in 2003, and that was Steve McNair and Peyton Manning. They had 29 total touchdowns for Steve McNair, 28 for Peyton, and they were co-MVPs. And then you have the 2008 Peyton season where he had 28 total touchdowns. And that's it. Everybody else had above 30 touchdowns. And so if you're going to tell me there was an MVP 20 years ago, they shared it, and then Peyton Manning 15 years ago, out of all the quarterbacks that have won it, and that's it, nobody else has had less than 30 touchdowns in the last decade, in the last 2 decades, then I'm going to say I would assume they would stick to that pattern. So I guess